Good morning and Happy New Year. This is Ron Brown. It is Saturday morning, December 30th, 2017. I'm going to do a short end of year review using HGSI investment software. I'm going to be approaching it from the top down, and I will be using files that I'm working on for my upcoming webinars, which I hope to begin around the third week of January. Now you have most of these views. I've modified some views for my own personal satisfaction just to make them more functional and easy. But if you go up to Ron Brown under the top-down process views, you'll have many of these views, if not most of them. I have just made some cosmetic changes and added, I think, one more view to this. But other than that, you should be all set to follow along with this. Now, I'm using the Major Markets Plus folder. What I use for my top-down analysis are the Woodward and Brown or the W&B user groups, which I put together many years ago, and they have worked very well for market analysis, so I continue to use them. Now, these are just all indexes in this instance that are available in HGSI, and I call this Major Markets Plus because what I did is I took the major markets and then I added some ETFs to this folder just to give me a more rounded view of what's going on in the market. Now I have removed the NYA this morning because it said it was an unknown symbol. I don't know if something is being changed with the NYA, but it's really not that important. I rarely look at the NYA anyway. So I just wanted to explain that. If you have 23 and I have 22, that's the reason why. Now I am sorting on raw combo, and this combo that I've applied down here is a different combo than what's up here because this is one of the things that I changed. I thought more about it. I just thought it would be more functional. And what this combo does, and the combo is available to you if you want to switch it. It's just called the VPA trend combo under my name. And what it does is it gives equal weighting to the VPA trends, the short, the medium, and the long. These are all weighted the same. And by doing that, you're going to find the strongest trends at the top of the list by sorting on raw combo. Now there's a lot of information here. You can see the percentage price change 1 day and 5 day. So even though the Dow Jones is one of the strongest trends, it was down a little bit this week. So to get a feel for these indexes that all have the same trends or they're all up, what I do is I use a multiple sort. I'll click on the A to Z, and you can see that I'm using the raw combo rank as my primary source. But then I want to go down here, I click on search, and I type in percent PR for price, and I select percentage price change 5 day. Now as I click on OK, look over here and you're going to see that some of these or look over here at the name and you'll see that there will be some changes over here. So if I click on that, you can see that the Dow Jones Industrial Average moved down to number 6 and the oil fund moved up to number 1. So this gives me the information about the strong trends and where the recent movement has been. Over the USO, the U.S. oil fund moved up 0.3% yesterday, and for 5 days it's moved up 3.2%. The commodity index is up 3% over the last 5 days, and you can see that the biotechs were down slightly, or this particular, the IBB was down slightly. So what this does by using a double sort is it gives a current view of the strength when multiple indexes, in this case, all have these same trend characteristics. So notice over here on the U.S. oil fund, 3 days ago, or days since the last VPA signal, is actually 4 days ago because zeros across over day, there was an effort to rise. If I bring this up, you will see right here, close this up and I'll zoom in by going with alternate 1 on this day right here. There was an effort to rise, formed a flag, and it's still moving up a little bit. Interestingly enough, when you go back here, you'll see that after these negative VPA flags, there was a test, low volume test, which is also a test for supply. Same thing. And you can see that it dropped down, but it closed at its high on relatively low volume. If I put a crosshair on here, you can see the volume was low compared to the selling volume the prior 2 days, and it generated this VPA flag. At the same time, I want you to notice down here at the bottom, the volume point of control over the 10 period, 10 buckets turned positive on that day. So that indicated that the bulls were in control now. The force indexes lag this, of course, and I don't see any pocket pivot until we get over here. So that's something to watch. VPA flags in many instances are extremely powerful and reliable. Not always, but they're worth looking at. Okay, so I'm going to move on here. I'm going to go back to my Zoom 2 level, and let's just flip down through these. You can see that the commodity indexes the last 5 days moved up sharply, and the trends, if you look up here, this trend information is right here in my chart. This is my number 6 view, which is located right here under my featured charts, and that is back on you'd have this chart because that is dated back there. I'm just continuing to use those charts, or this chart, for this particular presentation. Okay, so it's moved up nicely. As I look over here and look at the biotech index, you can see that over 5 days it went nowhere. Now I'm going to go down here to the bottom. You can see that the dollar, the power shares ETF, the trends are all down. Distribution is E, and over the past 5 days, these stocks, or this index, I should say, this ETF has been weak, down 0.9%. So if I bring up this chart, you can see that the dollar has been in trouble. That's something we all know. And you look at the trends here as I move this down to the last day, all these trends are down, which corresponds with what we see in the warehouse view. Now, while I'm in here, since I'm doing the end of year review, I'm going to just stay in this major markets plus, and I'm going to click down here on the percent return beginning of the year, and this is sorted on the percentage price change beginning of the year. And if you look at this column here, you can see that the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index was up 38.2%. This is since the beginning of the year. You can also see how it's performed over the last several months, and you can see that over the past 21 days, or approximately one trading month, it hasn't done anything. In fact, it's negative. So if I bring this chart up, this shows it very well here. It was very strong for most of the year, and then the tech sell-off, not a major sell-off, but it did. The semiconductor stocks did get hurt, and they really have not fully recovered yet. Most of them were down yesterday. Now this is followed by the NASDAQ 100, 31.5%, the NASDAQ Composite 28.2%, and the Dow 25.1%. Now if you go down here, you can see that the volatility index of VIX was down 21.4%. The dollar was down 9.2%, or the ETF was. Gasoline, which has been very strong recently, is up only 1.7%, and so on. So anyway, this is how you get a quick read on performance for the year. I'm going to go back to my top-down view, but then I'm going to move down to my major markets plus ETF. And you can use this same view, which works very well, or I've changed a few fields for my scorecard end-of-day ETFs. Just a little different look here, but either one can be used. Now let's look at these ETFs through the lens of the percentage return beginning of the year, and you can see that home construction shares, the ITB, was up 59.1%, followed by TAN, which is a solar ETF, up 51.7%. Here's the semiconductors, comparable number, 36.5%, and down the list. Now these are the VIX futures, the natural gas fund, which has been up this week since the beginning of the week. You can see it's up 10.8%, but for the year it's down 37.6%. So this is just a handy way to see how these ETFs or the indexes have performed. I'm going to go back to the scorecard end of day, and I'll drop down to the next folder, which is my Spider ETFs. These are all SPDR ETFs, and I am still using the multiple sort. If I hold my mouse over here, it tells me what my sort is. It's a raw combo plus a percentage price change 5-day. So the metal and mining XME Spider, you can see that this thing has been on fire over the past several days. In fact, if we look at the go down here and look at the 21-day return on the here it is, the XME 21-day return up 15.3%. So for the year it's up 19.6%, but 15.3% of that return in the short term has been during the last month. So it caught on fire. Let's go back to this, and the trend's up. Let's look at the 5-day on this. You can see that over the past 5 days it's moved up very sharply. It's getting some negative VPA flags. It's overextended, but look at the pocket pivots that came in here. The volume point of control went positive clear back here along with the 2-day force, and then the 13-day force turned positive at this point, and it's been moving up very sharply. I want to go back to this percent return beginning of the year. You can see that since the beginning of the year, the Spider, the China Spider, has been up nearly 50%. Biotech has been strong, Infotech, and so on. Oil and gas exploration and production did poorly, but recently, if you look over here, I'll get this out of the way, over the past 21 days up 6.7%. That's the XOP. Bring that chart up. You can see that here was a VPA flag strengthening returning after a downtrend, and then here's an effort to rise, another effort to rise, another effort to rise. Stalling a little bit now, but a very nice move over a few short days. Okay, I'm going to move down to the next one. Now, these are my broad market indices, and for this, I'm going to use my view number 3, which will be in my new files. You probably have a different number on this with the older files, but I'm using the VPA trend combo again here also, and remember my sort is still the same. So the materials index, and by the way, I use the market weighting when I do my indexing, and I do it for 2 years, so my numbers may differ a little bit from yours, but that's the beauty of HGSI. You can set it up any way you want to. So the materials index, you can see that it's very strong. You can see the the long, medium, and short trends are all up over the past 5 days. It's moved up sharply. Now you notice that these are empty here, but from this level I can change to the index group, And what this does is it takes me down to, it's in the materials sector, but I'm now down at the industry group level within this sector. And this will show me the stocks that are sorted on the raw combo, or the trends are all in place, and then the industry percentage price change over 5 days would be right here in this column. And you can see that NTIC, which is a $24.75 stock, was up nearly 20% over those 5 days. And let's take a look at that. Well, it was up actually more than that, and then it pulled back on Thursday. But here's some good VPA flags again. If you click on these, the current information will be up here. The problem is this is a very low volume stock. Look at this, 4,500 shares. So I'll open this up. It only trades 5,400 shares a day, so you'd really have to be careful. But you know, the people who are in this are obviously very happy over the past few days. Let's find some stock that has more liquidity. Century Aluminum has been coming up, and in the screens, in my screens, and look at Century Aluminum over the past 5 days. Now this one trades 2.3 million shares a day, so a totally different type of stock, obviously. But getting back to this stock, this is how you locate stocks like this. If you want to bother with them, you use the top-down view, because it will help locate stocks which do not meet the minimum filter requirements of 100,000 shares. And a lot of times there are some stocks, if you get in them, they can move up nicely because there's no supply. If there's more demand than supply, they're going to move up. Anyway, I'm going to go back here to this level. I'm still here. You can just look down this list and see where the strength and weakness is right now as far as the trends. The utilities have not been doing well. You can see that the trends are all down on this, but most of these are up, as we would expect in such a strong year that we've had. 2017 obviously has been an outlier year compared to what we're normally used to. But the thing about HGSI is even when the markets aren't doing well as a whole, you're able to find what is moving, and that's the beauty of the top-down approach. Now this is a longer term look because of the trends, and if you want to really see what happened yesterday, you go down to my next view, the demand supply, and this is sort of on advancers versus decliners. And you can see that utilities yesterday was not a good day in the market, but it had 7 advancers, 7 decliners, and 1 unchanged. If we go to the other end, I told you the semiconductors had not recovered well, or they did not follow through, and you look at the stocks, 0 up and 30 down. So this gives real insight into what happened yesterday. Next, I'm going to go down to my industry groups level, and it has a 0.7 in front of it because this is where it is in the Woodward and Brown W&B hierarchy. And I'm going to change to the industry group, and I'll go up to the top by clicking here. This is advancers versus decliners. You can see that cement and aggregates were strong yesterday at this level. This is all part of the top-down approach. You see you get totally different looks and a different feel by doing this. Now I'm going to go back up to my number 3 view, and you can see that this brings up the groups which are all trending up. You can see long, medium, and short-term trends, but I am still sorted on the percent price change 5-day as my secondary sort. So if I bring up logistics services, you can see that over the past 5 days it's moved up nicely, and it's obviously a long-term trend. My fan, the 18, the 50, the 100, and the 200-day exponential moving averages are spread nicely apart. This is a sign of institutional support when you see a chart like this. Now I'm going to stay in the industry groups. I'm going to flip back down to number 7 here. You can see that personal care services was up the most. Remember, I'm using market cap weighting in 2 years for my calculations, but these are the numbers I come up with. Up 92.5% as a group. The consumer electric and appliances up 83.8%. Leisure clubs. Let's just go into the personal care services. I'll change to that industry group, and here is a stock that has appeared over and over. You can see that Weight Watchers International is up nearly 300% this year. I'm going to bring this chart up. It doesn't look like much right now. If I go to a weekly chart, though, alternate W, you can see that it broke out of a base around $13, it looks like, and moved up very sharply. Look how tight this is on a weekly chart here. Notice that the group is going down now, and it was a big black candle for the week. But I want to look at this on a daily chart, and I want to do something else. I'm going to go into the designer, and you can see that I transfer directly from the warehouse to the designer. Here's WTW. I'm going to type that up here, and then I'm going to click on this folder over here. It's going to search groups for stock, and you can see that it is in all of these indexes, but what I'm more interested in is the HGSI top 50, and you can see that Weight Watchers International appeared multiple times. I've seen this come up, well, multiple times over the past year. Now you can see it was moving up clear back in April, and then May a couple of days, and then June, and then July, and then we see several here in August. So let's use the 4th of August and see why it appeared in the top 50 group inclusion report. So that would be August 4th. Let's go back to, I'll just scroll back. This is another nice feature of HGSI. You can scroll back. Put my crosshair on here. There is August 4th right there. It had an effort to rise, had several more, and then it went into a consolidation period as I move across here. But it looks like it didn't penetrate the 50-day exponential moving average. Oh, I'm sorry, it did right here, and then it went down. And then, wow, this is the long period right here where it's really done nothing. Let's see if we can find something else. Let's go back. Let's go back here. I'm going to go back all the way to May 8th. Let's take a look at May 8th. But you can see there were ample opportunities to get in here. So here is May 8th right there. Here's your gap up, came down, and then there was an effort to rise, and this was down at the $21 level. Let's go back a little earlier. 410. Let's see what 410 looked like. Right here, just coming out of the base right there with an effort to rise, and obviously that would have been the place to catch it. Why? Because there was a pocket pivot here and the fan was already in place. You can see that the 18 is above the 50, which is above the 100, which is above the 200, and this is where it made its move up and did not get below that 18 until this correction here, and then here was that viable gap up, but it really hasn't done a lot. This was the main part of the move, and it did show up in the top 50 back on this date. Just out of curiosity, what's the number 2 stock? Be Medifast. And I'm going to go back to the designer. I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to put MED in here. Do the same thing. And you can see that it appeared only once in the top 50, and that was this month. But if you look at these other groups, and by the way, these are groups that I keep every day, or I update every day, I should say, for those who are members of the Insider Club. And you can see that it appeared in the top 100 raw combo stocks back on 8/22. So let's take a look at 8/22. I don't just look at the top 50. I look at these other groups that I keep also. So 8/22 for Medifast would be right there. And then it held, went sideways. It was under accumulation. Look at all these VPA flags. What was the price here? It was 55.48. Made a nice move up here, and it got up to close to the 75 level, and it's still hanging around here. But once again, it appeared in not the top 50 group inclusion report, but in a SMART group. And this is a very handy way, if you have this information, to see when these stocks appeared. Now, for you Insider Club members, this information has all been updated for you to download. Obviously, on next Tuesday, I'll be starting the 2018 group. I'll leave the 2017 information in here for about 6 or 8 months, and but it will not update. It will not increase your updating time, but we'll have it here for historical reference to do just what I was showing you here. Okay, I'm going to go back to take a look at some of these other groups. You can see that other than the personal care services, several of these groups did extremely well. Consumer electronics and appliances, leisure clubs, educational services, and so on down the list. Home builders have been very strong this year. If I go down to the industry group level, you can see that LG IH is on top, strongly trending with the VPA trends, followed by NVR and then KB Home. If I bring this up, you can see that this is an extremely strong trend on this stock. Stayed well above the 18-day exponential moving average most of the time, and when it did come down and correct a little bit over a 2-day period, it held at the 18 and just started going up again. Okay, I'm going to go back to the industry groups, and this is something you can do yourself. You can just come in here, use the percent return beginning of the year, and see how these groups have done. Now, I'm looking back. I'm not looking forward, because obviously that's impossible, but by looking back, we can see or learn from these trades using VPA flags and so on, relative strength, things like that, what to look for in the coming year. And I rely more and more upon these VPA flags when I am investigating potential trades. So let's see if we can look forward a little bit, or at least base this upon what happened on Friday. I'm going to all securities. I'm going to go down to the industry group movement one day, stocks and groups up one day. You can see that this is what happened on Friday. These stocks and the other mined minerals were up for the day, and there weren't very many of them. 311 stocks were up for the day, and these are the groups that they're in. If I go to the down for the day, look at this number, 2993. So yesterday, Friday, was not a good day for stocks. So coming back to this, these are the ones where there was strength yesterday, and this is a place that you could use for prospecting purposes. And there are several ways to do this. I'm not going to get into them, but let's just use this as an example. I have not looked at this stock. It's $17.57 stock. It was up 4.6% on Friday. It's up 10.1% since the beginning of the week. It's got an effort to rise on Friday. Let's just take a look at this stock, and you can see that this is a beautiful chart. Now, what does this belong to? Yes, I thought so. It was in the paper group. Now, I saw this appear in my scans. I didn't pay much attention to it, which was a mistake on my part. The average volume is not bad, 617, 260. It's just that I'm like everybody else. You know, I look for the so-called glamour stocks and so on, and sometimes overlook these great little stocks which appear, and you won't find a stock that looks much better than this. It's made a tremendous run. Look at all of these VPA flags. There's a test for supply. Here is an up bar closing near the high after this test, which confirmed it. Here is an effort to rise. Yes, there was a down signal too, but it was above the the 18-day exponential moving average and moving up, and it just did not stop, and it still hasn't stopped. What other signals did we get here? Well, it went from negative one day on the volume point of control to positive, and then the force indexes were both positive. 13 have been positive from clear back here. Look at all these pocket pivots. There's a bunch here, here's two here, and here are several here as this stock continued to rise. It pulled back, and it just did not give up any ground, and look at this. Would I buy it now? Probably not, but I should have, I probably would have said that, back here too, and look what happened to it. So, all you can do is put a trade on, control your risk, and see if it continues to go. Now look at all these other paper stocks that were up for the day. Now here's Mercer. 5 days ago it had an effort to rise. Let's take a look at it. And that was back here, but before that, you can see that there were several VPA flags. There's strength seen returning after a downtrend, and this is a bar closing near the high, which confirmed the prior day's signal, and it moved up. Now, if I don't want to spend a bunch of time looking at these, what I can do is I can make group from list, and I'll just call this stocks up December 29th, 2017. And then there are several ways to prospect for these without spending a lot of time. For example, I'm looking for bullish VPA flags today, stocks and groups. Just by applying this, I am only going to be looking at stocks that are showing a VPA flag today, and here is the signal over here. So I can quickly flip through these charts. Here's a stock that has been basing sideways for quite a while. It had a pocket pivot and an effort to rise today. The group has been moving up. It has been a laggard, but it looks like it may go now. No guarantees, but here's the problem. It only trades 137,000 shares a day. Let's go to the next one. Here's High Crush Partners. This was a high flyer at one time. I'm going to do an alternate weekly on this, and you can see that it was up around 22, and then it corrected all the way down to about the $8 level, but it's been under accumulation now. I don't know. It hasn't broken away cleanly yet, but my purpose here is just to show you how you can quickly eliminate a bunch of stocks and flip through these charts and look for a decent chart that has potential of going higher. Now, this one came off the bottom. This is oil, gas, and services, which has been moving up. What's the group right now? It's 96. We don't have a lot of earnings information on this. Moved up, corrected. Here's an effort to rise, another effort to rise on Friday. So 2 in a row. It's worth putting on a watch list to see if this carries through. Here's the Verso, which I looked at. Here's a gold stock. You can see a lot of these stocks have been beaten down. This one, another low volume stock. You can tell that just by looking at the bars and so on. Now here is one that trades over 3 million. Trying to break past resistance, oil and gas services and equipment. Worth putting in the watch list to see if it can clear the resistance areas here. Here's Martin. I'm sorry, got off that. Martin Marietta. Been a long basing period here. Starting to move up. Effort to rise, along with a confirmation of this test. More effort to rise. More effort to rise. An expensive stock, to say the least. But once again, it passes the filter. Now, if you want to find out quickly which is the strongest stock out of all of these with signals, you can use this tool, the tile ranking and warehouse horizontally, and then depending upon your time period, this one just happens to be versus the S&P over 3 weeks, and you can see that Verso, that stock I looked at first, it has outperformed the S&P over the last 3 weeks by 42%. 100 is the base for the S&P. So the number after the 1 shows you the outperformance. Now let's take a very long-term look at this. I'm going to use Ian Slow, which is based upon 6 months. I'm going to change this from raw to relative strength. And look what the top stock is. Same one, VRS. And here is one, which I know one of our HGSI users who's in the Skype bulletin board for those who have attended the workshop. He got into this one right here on this effort to rise. I saw it that day. I didn't take it, but fortunately he did. And look at this beauty. It consolidated here after these efforts to rise. Pocket pivots, went sideways, and then it broke out here. And it is one of the leading stocks in the database. This is about as tight as you can get. Let's look at one more. Diamond Offshore Drilling. Not nearly as nice a chart, but based upon the 6-month period, it is number 3. So that's just a quick way to compare long-term strength to the stocks which are passing a signal. Now I'm going to end this today. I don't want to go on and on, but I just wanted to give you a review of what the indexes did this year and what some of the stocks did. There's one more thing that I'll leave you with. I'm going to go back to all securities, and I'm going to go back down here to the industry group movement end of day, all stocks and groups, and I'm going to make a list. There's 3,306 securities in here. Alternate G. These are stocks that have been assigned to groups in HGSI. I do not need an index, but I'm going to go back up to the top. I'm going to look at the percent return since the beginning of the year. And I want to point something out to you. If you see numbers like this, look over here to the percentage price change 12 months. If it hasn't been trading for 12 months, don't even look at these numbers. Do not mean anything. But this one here, Bonanza Creek Energy, it says it's up 2,600%, and it says it's traded for 12 months. Let's look at it. I'm just saying, ignore the ones where there's nothing in this column here, but this doesn't look right. Let's do a monthly on it. Here's the reason. There's a huge gap here. So sometimes you'll see things like this, which just don't make any sense. And by looking at the chart, you can figure out if something happened in the past. Now here's a biotech. It's up 743% over the past 12 months. It's up 675. Let's look at this one. And this looks like a valid symbol, because it was clear up here, fell down. This is the problem with trading biotechs. You can either strike it rich or get hit very hard. Let's go back to the daily on this one. And you can see that it came off of a base here. Here's an effort to rise, pocket pivots on the daily chart, base sideways, and it just took off. XOMA, XOMA. It wasn't always a smooth ride. As you can see, there were some shakeouts and so on. But, you know, for the insiders, the people that are holding this stock, this has been a very good year. So if you're looking at these, if they haven't traded for 12 months, just forget it, because you're not going to get the correct numbers. Let's look at this one. Another specialty. This is a specialty pharma stock. And you can see that, yes, it did make a tremendous move. By the way, this one's been coming up in some of the screens, and I believe in the group inclusion report. That's it. Have a great 2018, and as I get closer to getting prepared for my webinar series, I'll let people know in case you're interested in taking it. Thank you for listening, and once again, have a happy, safe, and prosperous 2018.